Today, I'm talking to Jessica Canning of Carmel and Pebble Beach, California, with Sotheby's International Realty. About 10 years ago, Jessica joined her team, Canning Property Group, that was founded by her father over 30 years ago. With nearly 10 years of experience as Global Research Director of Venture Capital and Private Equity for Dow Jones, Jessica brought what she learned from global research and applied it to residential real estate. Today, she has an average sales price of over $5 million and is selling hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate each year. This year alone, her team has sold to date over $300 million and is on track to finish the year selling nearly $400 million. Jessica is a record-breaking agent with a record-breaking team. She and I talk about how to analyze and structure your business for affluent clients. Thanks for listening to the Jere Metcalf Podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. This podcast was created for real estate agents across the country to come together, sharing ideas to take your, their, and our business to the next level. All right, everybody, it's the Jere Metcalf Podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. Really excited today because we have a really special real estate agent, Jessica Canning, she's in Carmel and Pebble Beach in Northern California. And she is going to share with us, this woman runs her business like a business. She's going to share with us a little bit about that. Jessica, thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. I'm really excited. I've caught a couple of your previous sessions and I'm honored to be here.
Well, it's an honor to have you. So tell us a little bit, before we start talking about your business, let's get a little bit of background on you, because everybody, this woman, as you know, she wouldn't be on the show if she wasn't selling a significant amount of really special real estate. How long did you get in? Why did you get in? And how did you get where you are now?
Yeah, so I am a second generation realtor in this area. We moved here to Pebble Beach when I was 8, and my dad got into real estate sales at that point in time. And so, I often laugh that my first job was doing mailers at 9 years old, like folding and stuffing envelopes. I've been doing that as long as I've been able to ride a bike. But after he's been focused, my father, Mike Canning, has been focused on oceanfront and Gulfront sales, basically from day one. I went on to get my degree in economics from Santa Clara and then went off to become the global research director at Dow Jones. And I was there for about 10 years, leading the research division. And I kept coming home to visit my parents and being like, why am I not living here? Like, this is crazy. Every time I'd come to this area, I would just relax a little bit more and be happier. And then, helping my dad a little bit. So it took me about 9 months to convince him that I should join the team, because he wanted to retire and he wanted to get out of it. And he's like, real estate's too hard. You never get any time off. You're not going to like it. But eventually I kind of jumped, and that was about 10 years ago. And so I've definitely applied a lot of what I've learned in corporate America and Dow Jones to how we approach the real estate process down here.
Wow. So dad was like, you're not going to like it. We can all relate to that. He's been doing this for a long time. My grandmother told me, I've been doing this for 17, 18 years. And my grandmother told me, when I was getting my license, she did it for 8. And she's one of these women who got her master's when women really were just supposed to go to college for the MRS.
Yeah.
And then, but she was a badass.
Yeah.
And she was a real estate agent for 8 years and like did land deals that nobody did and assemblages. And she looked at me and goes, just don't do it.
Yeah.
And now I know why.
Exactly.
But I also wouldn't take anything away. I wouldn't be who I am today without it. Yeah. So your dad said, don't do it. Now, how did you know you wanted to do it anyway?
I think part of that comes down to, and it is really interesting to see how many people are second generation. Like it just gets in your blood and you hear the terms. And, you know, I've been visiting open houses and opening and closing for them since I was a kid. And so I think when you're surrounded by the experience of real estate and helping people, it's a little bit easier to transition. Yeah. But I mean, going from a salary job to, you know, you eat what you kill was a big challenge for me. There's no doubt about it. But, and it's a lot more work. You know, I always say this around the office, but we call it like hashtag not on house hunters, like how much of our job is not represented by television shows. I even had a client get into my car, this was a couple years ago, and he sat down and he goes, oh my gosh, you know, House Hunters is my favorite show. And I was being a little surly at the time. And I was like, oh, me too. I'm going to show you 3 houses. You're going to pick one, and then you're not allowed to say anything until you move in. And he's like, wait a second. I go, exactly. That's not how it goes. But I absolutely, once you learn how you're helping people and what you connect to and the different areas in this on Monterey Peninsula are just incredible. So I feel very lucky to be able to do this.
So speaking of non-house, like hashtag non-house hunters.
Yes.
We were on a Sotheby's conference call with a global group that we get together all the time and mastermind and do our Zoom calls. And you were on the call, leading the call and talking about, I don't remember what we called it, but I call it analyzing your business. And I just am like, this woman runs, like real estate is talking about, you got to run your business like a business. Oh no, this woman runs her business like a business. Or some agents will say, well, you know, the big agents who create these big teams that aren't really luxury, well, they run a business, but you know, these agents who are luxury, it's really just them and they're just agents and they're just one-on-one and they're not really running a business. You are running a business and you are selling multi-million-dollar properties in Pebble Beach, Carmel. I mean, it's really special. And I was like, we've got to get you on the show.
Yeah. No. So it's one of those, people have the misconception that, success is random. You know, we are very specific and focused on what we go after, why we do it and how we do it. You know, it's one thing to say, hey, I specialize in Pebble Beach and Carmel, but you know, when we just closed, I think $300 million so far this year, we've got another 66 to 100 in the pipeline for the rest of the year. It's not an accident, you know, and there's clients that you work in this area, especially like, I want to say the resort towns, it takes longer because you only see clients so many times a year, right? That they happen to be in beach mode. So there are clients
no sense of urgency that makes
you know, I just put one into escrow with clients that I've been working with for 10 years that my dad met 20 years ago. And you know, so people are like, oh, you just got another one on Scenic, like here goes another one. I go, no, I've been working 10 years for that deal. And so there's a persistence to it. But all of our efforts, so there's a couple of things, you know, if you want to go and attack a specific market, consistency is everything. You know, you can't just do anything one time. And so, you know, to say your ocean and golf friend, we do quarterly mailers. I mean, my dad's been sending letters and newsletters to a certain set of people since he started. And it actually, one time a client was so tired of getting his quarterly updates that he actually added my dad to his own mailer list for his company. He's like, fine, you're going to get my own mailers too. But
good, yeah,
which was great. But so we have, you know, quarterly newsletters. We also do a lot of work. So I created a custom Salesforce database. And because I used to create databases at Dow Jones. And so, you know, one of the things that's worth mentioning, because I get asked a lot of the times, you're like, what CRM tool do you use? Why do you use it? Yeah. What do you do with it? And it's my firm opinion, it doesn't matter which tool you use. The best tool is the one that you use most consistently. Like if you like Resora or whatever tool you happen to be using, as long as you're using it consistently,
just use it.
That's the best one. Yeah. But so we use Salesforce, and I created it so that we would track all of the owners in our target markets. If they own multiple houses, I know which ones they own. And so they're getting very specific, tailored quarterly updates when we do our quarterly analysis. So we're not going to send Carmel Valley to Pebble Beach. Like, they don't care. And I have to show them that I'm paying attention to what I think they need. The other thing that has really taken off in technology just over the past few years, but especially this year, we track when we send out our emails. I know exactly who's opening what. I know what they're clicking onto our website. You can track it directly onto the website. And I have custom emails that follow up based on that behavior. And it's really important. So, I've had a great example of this. It was one of my biggest sales. She had logged onto our website. We had like a discreet only, like off market, not yet on the market section of our website that you had to put your email in and go check out, right? And so she had logged on, I'm going to say 5 years ago. And I had some free time. So I was going through my database of people who had logged on, and I saw that she was like nosing around our website. She's also from Atlanta. And so I was checking her out, and I go, well, who is it? So I sent her an email. And I go, hi, Julie, good to see you. It's been a while. I just want to check in and see what you're doing. And she's like, actually, I'm headed to Carmel this week or in a month, and I'd love to meet up. And this is someone we've never met. I have no idea if she's qualified, but being a little bit proactive and actually tracking what people are doing, she was like, I want to get a little something, 2 to 3 million in Carmel, just a beach house. And I go, of course, I'm happy to. And I took her around and educated her. And she's like, in Carmel, the average house is 1,600 square feet. And that's small. Like, that's a condo in a lot of cities.
Especially coming from Atlanta.
Yeah, no.
I mean, 5,000 small here.
Yeah, that's a good closet in Atlanta.
Right, exactly.
And so she's like, I can't fit in one of these houses. Let's go over to Pebble where there's some actual houses. And so she loved old world, cool houses. And so I showed her, we had this one listing come to the market, and it was right around 5 million, and she loved it. But she goes, I was looking online. I like this house a lot, but there's this house right up the street that I really want to see. And I go, you have to know your market, and you have to know it before they've asked it. Like, by the time the person gets in the car, you have to know everything you're going to drive by. You have to know the history and who the owner is, right? And I go, do you mean Casa Ladera? And she's like, yeah, that's it. I go, well, Julie, it's $22 million. And she goes, I know, but let's go see it. She bought it. And that was just from someone who logged into our website 5 years earlier. But if you don't have the system in place to foster that kind of relationship, she would have gone to someone else.
Yeah. That's great. And we'll foster the relationship, see what they're doing, track multiple. And I love to hear this, because even watching when we were on the call, most people think that kind of tracking of your business is just for the guys that are doing high volume, low, lead to low conversion rates. It's not what we're talking about here.
It's the opposite.
Yeah. So we talk about you. So you were, where were you before with the global analysis? Was it
Dow Jones?
Yeah. So Dow Jones, you did global. So tell us just a little bit about what that was to help us translate that into what you are now, and how you're the brilliant genius at it, but what can we still learn from you and apply ourselves?
Sure. So when I was at Dow Jones, I managed research staff, and we created a database tracking venture capital and private equity. So I would track what these companies were doing, who were there, what did they do, how did it make them different? And I actually, and this was one of the rare skills that I got from it, but I would have to call the companies, cold call them, and try to collect information with them. And so it made me become a little bit more personal and afraid to just not afraid to just pick up the call and be like, all right, let's talk about what you're doing. And so I managed that team in San Francisco, New York, New Jersey, London, Shanghai, and Barcelona. And so I was traveling all over the place, but we would create these custom reports, both for kind of banks and venture capital firms, but also just kind of quarterly analytics. What's total investment? What's acquisitions? And one of the things that was really interesting that I apply now, I learned how the different personality types how people interpret information differently. And it's really important in this particular instance within the sales process, within real estate or just business. Analysis is more about listening to a person than speaking to a person. So specifically, we all know we have introverts and extroverts and things like that, but different people interpret information differently. So there's, in my experience, 4 different ways that people interpret information. The first way is like long paragraph form. This is where you'll have a client that'll email you like, yeah, and they're like, and then I went through the closet, and then I did this, and like, it'll be this long. You need to be able to respond with that kind of content back to them and actually speak their language. And that's a challenge for me. I am of the second category. I'm more of a bullet point person. Like, here's what you need to know, and then I'm going to go back to my world. But if that's how they respond, then great, you're speaking the same language. The third way that people will frequently respond to data and analysis are visual charts, graphs. Often the person will say things like, well, show me what you're talking about. That's where you have to like go find a map and highlight what we're talking about and circle things. That if you try to respond to someone who is visually inclined with a long paragraph, they're not going to read it, and they're not going to be able to understand and respond to what you're trying to say.
I didn't know there were people that did read those paragraphs.
I know, I don't. I can't do it.
It's really, I want to ask some more questions on that, but let's keep getting through the 4. So
okay, so the last fourth one,
bullet point visual. Keep going, please. Yeah.
The fourth one is the biggest challenge for me, and it's auditory. So these are people who just like, you will do this thoughtful 5-page report and tell them everything that they need to know, and then they'll just pick up the phone and say, okay, now tell me what you just sent to me, right? You're like, well, but you can save time if you just know that that's the kind of person they are and try to adapt accordingly. So those are kind of the 4 different personality types of that I've encountered.
And what's the difference in your business and engagement with people from before and after understanding that? Do you have any examples of somebody who you, especially the long paragraph? I literally was like, there's no way people actually are receptive. I can understand giving that way, but not receiving. Did you had like somebody that was a long paragraph person that you didn't get, and you did the long paragraph and it worked? I mean,
so
that one blows my mind.
That's a challenge for me. I have worked with people who do respond in those long paragraphs, and it takes me longer to stop what I'm doing and try to respond in kind. And that's, I think, one of the biggest challenges of this job is that we are instantly thrust into this partnership with a client. And you have to immediately learn what their learning style is, what their communication style is, and instantly translate that between clients throughout the day. All of a sudden you're like, okay, well, this person's a chatty person, this person's a paragraph person. I will save kind of for the end of the day the paragraph people, because then I can like be quiet in my house and like, okay, like let's talk about the 35 reasons why this is a good idea. But like, if you actually take the time and do it, you'll end up saving yourself more time in the long run. And so I work on a team with my dad, my brother. We have one other licensed agent. We have a marketing person. We have a TC. And then we just hired someone who does due diligence and is also licensed for showing. But that's one of the beauties of being on a team. So you can kind of tailor the client to your team member, right? So there's some people, like very qualified, great people, and they would get in my car and they would say, I'll just know it when I see it. Like, that doesn't work with me. Like, I'm like, I respect it, but that's not how I love to educate people and tell them like, well, our weather comes in from 270 degrees and this happens, and therefore we get fog and you have to manage your property this way. People that don't respond to that, I just give them to my brother because he has that learning style, and I would rather just refer it to him and he close the deal than me try to struggle through it out. So we can actually tailor make the client experience based on your team member.
So now I've got like 1,000 questions because I still want to touch a little more on analyzing what you do to analyze, but there's also how you communicate And that brings me into what you just said about teams and back to the consensus in our business is teams, if you're going to have a team if you're going to have a real team, like that actually functions as a team, not just a big person with a lot of other people trying to win deals on their name.
Yeah.
That's not really going to work in luxury, but that's a great example of how you can have a team in luxury. And it's actually really, really proactive and productive, not just as a team leader, but for your clients to be able to align to the agent on the team that best suits their needs without losing all of the benefits of the other team members on your team.
Well, and so one of the things that we do, so we'll get called in on listing presentations, right? And you should always do a little bit of research about who you're going to go meet. What's their background? What kind of, information can you get on them? But it's interesting. So what we have started doing, and seeing the benefits from, is the female factor. So I always attend, right? All the listing presentations.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'm just around and I don't provide any value, which is completely fine. Right.
Right.
But sometimes, a lot of the time in real estate, the man is buying it, but the woman is driving the actual purchase. Right. Mm-hmm. We just see that power dynamic.
So the listing, so you're coming with, is it your brother, your dad, or?
Exactly.
Right.
Both.
Okay.
Sometimes, depending, if we don't know what the personality type is like, all three of us will be there. And maybe all of a sudden they just want to talk about grandkids. And my brother has 3 kids. And so they just talk about kids the whole time. And I go, great, that's great. But what's interesting is, we started winning business just because I was there sitting and talking with the wife or the daughter or whomever is there. And we started winning business just because now all of a sudden I'm engaging the real decision maker of the group. And it got to the point now, because we have a couple of big competitors, and our biggest competitor does not have a strong female lead on his team. And there was one time where I left the listing presentation, and we're great about it. Like, we work well. We've even co-listed. So we have a good sense of humor. We work with each other enough.
Yeah.
But he actually yelled at the window. He's like, "Don't do the female thing, Jess." And it's turned into a thing. And so bringing a balance of personality types to listing presentations and new clients can win you way more business.
So now on the female factor, I love that.
Yeah.
Let's just get politically incorrect.
Sure.
But really the female factor, I love that there's a study, I want to look it up, but there's a study that, and this is not politically incorrect, but anyway, but I don't think, who knows, but there's a study that when people meet a man and woman together, they are like subconsciously, they're a lot more comfortable, a lot quickly, I guess because of the personality, who knows what it is, but people are much more receptive to meeting a man and woman than they are to a man or a woman or two men or 2 women.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I experience it. It's not 100%, there's some that are like a guy's guy. And I'm like, again, and I think that's a really interesting and challenging part of building a really strong team is you got to put the ego aside. There are some deals like
successful.
I'm not going to win. Yeah. I was like, if it's a guy's guy that only wants to talk about golf the whole time, I just pull myself out. I go, hey, go get it to my dad and my brother, and they do, and they get along great and they become best friends. But to have that team dynamic where you're all kind of equal and you're just there to try to support your clients, it can have a huge difference on the team and your success.
And your team, it's your dad who was going to get out of business 10 years ago because it was too hard. He didn't have time off and he didn't want you to do it because he was going to get out of it. Retire.
Exactly.
Love that. Your dad, you're like, I don't know if you're sorry dad or you're welcome dad. I'm not sure which one.
It's a little bit of both depending on the day.
Your dad, your brother, you, and then you've got a marketing director or marketing
coordinator full-time, and TC to do
transaction coordinator.
Correct.
And so TC, everybody, transaction coordinator. Yeah. So for the transaction coordinator, is that closings or both closings and listings, or what are the transactions that they ever see?
Everything paperwork related.
All paperwork. And you just got one person for that?
Yeah. She's really busy. Yeah.
So you've done 300 million so far this year. You've got another 60 million pending. That's insane.
So last year, it's insane. It really is. So last year we did 201 million, and a good year. So our price point is usually 2 million to 50 million is kind of the range that we usually do. And last year we did our best year ever at 200 million in 32 transactions. Right now, with the way this whole market has just exploded, we're already at 65 transactions. I mean, it almost killed us, to be completely honest. Like, I barely survived the summer, but it also shows you kind of what you're capable of, you know, for any point in time. Last year, you know, our highest so we're very seasonal, right? Like the beach town, it takes off in the summer. And so that's my busy season. And the most we ever had in escrow at the same time were 14 deals at once. That was last year.
But here's what's so funny about that. Like in Atlanta, we actually, like, I'm more wow, not because of the number of transactions, but because of the volume with the number of transactions, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's insane.
But 62 is a lot of or 65. And I mean, that's a lot of transactions to handle, especially at that price. Like a deal that's a $5 million deal is no matter what market you're in.
Yeah.
It's a very different deal from a deal that's, 250,000 or 500 or under $1 million, or really that you get it. It's a very, very, very different client, different expectations, different market,
and different property, you know. So we're on the coast, and so everything starts to come into play. You know, you have underwater sea caves, you've got to get like drone, we have fault lines you have to be aware of, and you have Indian burial grounds, and like everything comes into play at that point in time. It's a challenge. So
I'm going to get through this team. Now we're talking about analyzing the team. We're talking about analyzing your business, your team structure. Oh, and then I can see another fun rabbit hole. But analyzing, so the team structure, but you said you have so you've got
so
the three agents. The three agents do buyers and sellers.
Yes.
And then you've got marketing person who's probably marketing. Like, is it the emails, the newsletters, the brochures, anything marketing?
Yes.
And then you've got a transaction person that is anything paperwork.
Correct.
And now you've got this new due diligence person.
So and I'll go one step. So we also have a full-time salesperson in addition to my family. And that's part two. So we added him about a year and a half ago, and he's just done a phenomenal job.
That's right. And he's also an agent. So 4 agents.
4 agents total. And one of the things, so we try to have some kind of geographic expertise, and we try, and again, this goes back to the ego concept. Like, we try to encourage Pebble Beach with my brother, right? Because he's a golfer and he kind of gets it. And I do a lot of Carmel. We'll do everything. But Brian, our salesperson, he just focuses on the preserve, the San Lucia Preserve. And it's 10,000 acres, 300 home sites. It takes a day for me to go show it. And so we just hired him full time to just go sell the crap out of that place. And he's done it. And it's important for us. It's like, even if it's a really good client that we've had for 15 years, I still give it to him. And I say, you will do a better job because you know this ground better. And so when you're looking at building a team, we look at it, one, from, is there a geographic expertise, or is there some kind of skill set that we're looking at adding on? And that's where the last person we just joined, I think a month and a half ago, was a crazy time to do it, but due diligence. So we make sure to attend every single showing. We don't do lockboxes. We also we attend every inspection. But that'll be 4 to 5 hours of my time. And so I was saying, okay, I want to be there and someone needs to be there, but is it more productive and efficient for someone to be parked at the house that just knows how to do inspections and due diligence and home maintenance and kind of track down that information? And then I just sell. And I go, so I'm the lead on the deal, but he manages in all the inspections, sets everything up, does all the due diligence from a permitting, zoning, everything like that then I can review. And so rather than me dedicating my time to it, he just runs with it. Now in the long run, he probably will also sell, we'll focus on the Highlands for him. Because again, like the more successful he is, the more successful we are. And so it's just a matter of trying to invest in new talent in areas that will give me more free time and also more sales time.
Well, and the due diligence role, I've never heard of that. That's brilliant. It sounds like it's more necessary in your market too, because of you talked about the fault lines and being aware of things, and you're on the coast.
Fire insurance and earthquake retrofitting. And it's just, and we really, and I think part of this goes down to the fact that before my dad was in sales, he was a real estate attorney. And so we do like deep dives on houses. And so it's a matter of like, and part of it, you know, since we've been here for 30 years, we know every house. We know like, okay, I know that the street line, this street in Carmel has a history of tree roots getting into the sewer line. So we know in that part of Carmel, you got to do a sewer inspection. And so there's like a certain amount of local knowledge that goes with it.
Well, it sounds like that due diligence role is also a great gateway. If you grow the team, it's a nice gateway to get, because people who want to be agents are typically horrible administration people, horrible. Yeah. And that's usually like, I'm going to be an assistant. So you're really just going to be a really bad assistant, and you're really going to upset the team later and have to go find another team to join when you realize you don't want to be an assistant, because that all went to hell in a handbasket. Yeah. But in this case, you're in the field, you're learning the things you need to know to be an agent. You're meeting people, you're learning the business. And now you've got this really great gate, you know, entry into being in the business, and for you, it's a great filter to who's going to be good on the team.
Exactly. And because, you know, one of the things that really sets us apart is we dedicate ourselves to working smarter and harder than everyone else. So, you know, I was showing a house, and I get too granular because I get excited about it. Like, I just love this area. Right. And so I know too much about it, but you know, I had another agent who brought their buyer to the house, and like, God, I feel like this is like a grad course in the Monterey Peninsula. Cause I was like, well, this is where this is. And I knew like,
well, and the way you analyze your business, absolutely. They're like, okay. I love it, but at least you've got it.
Yeah. But so you're right with the due diligence role. It's the perfect training ground to be equally knowledgeable. And I think to show a property, you have to be knowledgeable about your market.
So you talked about a question I usually ask in the very beginning, but this interview is taken off, and I think such a great way. I mean, talk about informative, but I always say, what gives you, in such a competitive industry, what gives you your competitive edge, why do they pick you? You're working smarter and you're working harder. Yeah. Smarter with the way you structure your team, smarter with the way you're analyzing your business to win the business, and harder. All that stuff's hard to do, first of all.
To do it really well.
But anything else to add to that? And then I want to circle back into analyzing your business.
Yeah. So I think the other thing that, and this is for good and for bad, it's good, but it makes our jobs harder. And clients will say it in a weird way, but at the same time, it really is probably the best way of saying it. But we don't necessarily, if we're representing buyers, we don't necessarily care about making the sale, right? Like I am a relationship person. And so at the end of the day, I'm like, this is your house. Like, take me out of it. Like, I'll work with people. So there's one hilarious story. So when I first started and I was totally green, right? My dad was like, hey, Jess, here's this buyer and he's qualified up to 10 million. I'm like, oh my gosh, a $10 million buyer, like straight out of the gates. Like, I felt amazing. I was so excited. And so that was 10 years ago. And I think he finally bought a house in 2 years ago. And it was just a $3.5 million condo. I was very happy for that.
I love the $10 million buyer 8 years later buys a $3.5 million.
$3.5 million. And this is what it kind of comes down to, the relationship. My dad started working with him when I was in middle school. Like, that's how long he's been trying to get him to find the right place. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't care. Like, if you don't buy this one, you'll buy a different one. Where there's a lot of salespeople that will like push people into one direction or the other. That's just not our style. We're very hands off. Like, we will help you get smart about what you find, but We're not here to sell it to you.
Yeah, I love that. And that's so true. That's so true. Because I think there's a little bit of, I always say this, but there's a little bit of an unfortunate stress on closing deals in our business.
Yeah.
But the deals to close are the ones your clients want to close, not the ones you do. Otherwise, you actually end up closing less.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very short-sighted. I think new agents just try to like lock people in and just try to see it. They see it one transaction at a time. Whereas for us, you know, the fact that I've told people, so I was representing some buyers, they were looking around up to 5 million, right? And they found a house up the street from where they were. And they were trying to decide if they wanted to pick that house or the $750,000 lot a little bit further up and build their dream house. And they go, Jess, you know, what do you recommend? I was like, the lot. Like, you're crazy. And I go, don't buy this. You're not going to be like, because if you spend $3.5 million on something you don't love, you just wasted that. I go build what you want.
Exactly.
And that person gave me 5 referrals from that, because you're just like, I am listening to you and I'm giving you the best advice I can.
Exactly. I love to hear it. I have a similar experience recently. I had a client and they were buying a $3.5 million house and we found a $1 million lot. And I was like, buy the lot. And he was blown. He was like, what? It's like, but that's really what you want.
That's
you can build the house you want. And then when we negotiated, he was like telling me, well, let's see if we can get it down to this. I was like, no, we're going to get it for less than that.
Yeah.
You know, but that's what makes it fun. Like, I'm like, no, I know we can do better than this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I could settle for that and just close the deal, but no, like, I know we're negotiating one right now. And my client's he's so funny because he's like, you're more worried about me than I am about me.
Yeah.
Like, that's because that's what I do. That's what my job is. It's actually the deal getting closed is just the result of being good at what you do, but I've got to be good at what I do first.
Yeah.
First, and the deal is closed. Like,
We'll figure the rest out.
What happens.
Yeah. But that's what I think the long-term success in this industry, that has to be your focus.
So analyzing your business, you built out a Salesforce sheet. I mean, you talked a little bit about it, but you built out a Salesforce sheet so that you can you're tracking what people are doing, where they're coming from, what their neighborhoods are. And then you're sending them customized reports of what they're interested in. How automated and how much of that can you automate? How do you do that? And how much time does that take to really do? And how many people? And
a lot across the board. So there's 3 stages to it, right? The first one is the data itself. It's hard to get good data. And there's a phrase in analysis and data that's garbage in, garbage out. Like, if you don't take the time to get your data clean, you will waste 10 times that cleaning it up later, and you'll be wasting money sending stuff. So what we've created, we look very closely at the only regions that we care about, right? The only regions we target. That's probably a better way of saying that.
Yeah.
We care about everything, but that we are proactively hunting for, right? And we track all on market.
The focus of your team and your business.
Thank you.
What you specialize in and what you know.
Yeah. But so we track all on market and off market sales, who's buying, who's selling. And I track codes according to, is it Gulf View? Is it Ocean View? What's the lot size? So I can filter by those at a later point in time. And we track aggregated analysis for kind of certain regions. I feel very strongly, most people don't feel strongly, but given my data background, we only use median sales price. Average sales price in this area can go up or down 50%
because of one sale.
Yeah. So we always look at median sales price. And so we create this big report that's 20 pages long, right? And it's a PDF, and we also have it on our website. We then kind of the next stage is, who do you send it to? How do you send it? And then what do you do with it is the third stage. So if we have the email addresses, we send it out in email. And we played with this in a couple of different ways of what actually the context that goes out. And we have found a nice balance of the following: 2-paragraph summary. So that is where your paragraph comes in. You're going to have 1 or 2 charts on that email. If you include a video, your click rate quadruples. So,
wow.
and it's something just like this. 30 seconds of me saying exactly what's in the paragraph. Like I literally just read it. I memorize it and read it standing in front of the beach. But the click through and open rate, if there's a video present, is exponential compared to without it. And then down at the bottom, we have we try to have between 4 and 6 listings that people can just click straight through. And what we look at is one per key region, right? So it's like, hey, that's interesting that this now all of a sudden from someone that we spoke with 20 years ago, why is he clicking on this Pebble Beach house? And is he then kind of searching through and looking at all the other Pebble Beach houses in our area? And so it's really interesting. One, the feedback that you get from the electronic is so much better than print, but don't judge people who like print. It's still worth mailing it to. Like, it's not a good position to judge your client ever. Like, it's just,
or don't tell them they don't need it if they want it. Yeah. Just give them what they want.
Just give it to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we do mail to people that we don't have email addresses for. And I want to say at least 40 to 60% of our new listing presentations, I'll get to the house and it's sitting on the table. Like I know that for a fact. And so it's, people that we've never spoken with have been reading it without us knowing. Now, of the people that we do know that click through, you start tracking, okay, why is this person clicking through on this Pebble Beach house when he's always wanted Carmel? Now, we don't do enough of like A/B campaigns or automated drip campaigns. What I like to do, because our clients are very high touch, I'll just sit and kind of the next couple days, watch what people are clicking through. And not necessarily like, hey, I saw that you did this. Hey, I just don't like automated.
Sometimes they'll stop searching. They're like, oh, I'm being watched.
Yeah, exactly.
Or, oh, you're just drip campaigning. You don't really care. You're just trying to get my business.
Exactly. But what I will do is I'll calendar out. So after we send out the quarterly updates, I'll calendar out open houses. And I'll say, of the people who click through, I'll be like, hey, I'm going to hold this house open. I'd love to have you stop by, or I'm happy to do a FaceTime while I'm there. And that is an action that you can actually
turn on. FaceTime. Like, duh. Why did I never thought of that. That's so obvious.
Yeah. And then while you're also at the house, have someone, or there's a lot of tools you can use that you record the video walkthrough. And that has been life-saving for us, not just with COVID related, but people, I sold a place in the Highlands just recently, and I like doing the physical walkthrough where our marketing coordinator just follows me around and I do to your right is the master bedroom and to the left is it, because it gets us out of that little thumbnail view of the 1 inch by 1 inch where all living rooms look the same, even though you go in and it's like a $30 million house that's spectacular. It looks the same as a $100,000 house. And so you can really pitch it. Now, if you do a video, you want to make sure that it's less than 2 minutes. Even our $40 million house, it's 2 minutes because that's all that people watch. So don't spend a ton of money with really fancy long videos. But what I did is, so you send that out to anyone who has clicked through. Be like, hey, I was at the house the other day and I filmed this video, and people will watch it. And it was really
cute. Now the video, you put that on the website, on social media, where do you put it? Everywhere?
Yeah, so we put it on the website, and then we also post it on social media. And what we're looking to do now— I can't believe
how many showings we get off of those on social media.
Yeah. No, it has gotten to the point now.
I didn't think people were really watching. Wow.
I didn't think so either.
Yeah.
No, it got to the point now where I'm like, why do we do still photography?
Yeah.
Because people engage so much
and
more.
When you're on the camera, I'm like, people they really want to see me. Yeah. But when you're on the camera talking about the house, the response rate is so much higher than when it's just the house.
Yeah. So it was really cute. I just sold this other place and we did it. And I didn't know that this lady had downloaded the video, right? The buyer. And so they made the offer, we got in a contract, and then they went home to St. Louis while we were doing all the due diligence. And that's hard to keep a buyer engaged from that far away.
Yeah.
And so with our side, we were like learning about termites and rotten decks and everything like that. And she was at home in St. Louis watching my video 100 times. And I never met her. My brother did the initial showing. And so finally I did the final walkthrough when they funded. And she's like, I feel like you're a celebrity and I feel like I know you, because every night
So true.
she would watch it. And so that's the kind of materials and engagement that we never did before, but are just not life-changing, but absolutely critical now.
So what website do you use? What tools do you use to make sure you're tracking who's viewing what?
Yeah, so we like to, and some agents hate that we do this, but we do it because we can track it. We put everything on our website. And even if we create a property website, what we do is we reserve the URL and just forward it straight to our website. So even other agents, I'm like, just, it's one place. I'm not going to have
to recreate it 20 times.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Like, you need to pick your battles. I think we have a YouTube channel, but we just put everything on our website.
Yeah.
And then we can track it. And so now I know, like, if so-and-so clicked.
So are you using the Sotheby site, or are you using your own site that you built out?
We're using our own because we put so much time and energy into it. The Sotheby
that's
site
how you
has a lot going for it.
Yeah, we can't, because right now I'm on the Sotheby site, which makes it easy, but it was also to get everything right on the Sotheby site before we do our own site.
Exactly.
To be able to track who's coming.
The tracking is huge. And also, so that kind of circles all the way back to the beginning with the analysis, right?
Yeah.
So what I'll do, and there's a couple of agents that do a really good job, a better job than we do, but like once a week or once a month, you go to your web analytics and you say, all right, first of all, you look at it over time. And I'll be like, what did I do on Tuesday that resulted in like 1,000 hits? And you'll go back and be like, okay, whatever we did, we need to do that again. And so when you're planning out your goals for the month or even like next year planning, I'm going to go back and be like, well, these are the most effective campaigns. These are what people are clicking on. The other thing that I'll look at, regardless of time, I'll look at what the individual pages people are looking at. And I just did this for that training that I did. And I looked at it, I'm like, and a couple things jumped out at me. The first 10 were all ocean view properties. That's not a huge surprise, right? Like, that's kind of what everyone thinks of when they think of beach houses. But then one of them was like in the preserve, which has no view and it's a medium price point. I will look at that and try to then target buyers and sellers based on those metrics. I'm like, okay, well, the market is telling me that they want ocean view. So I'm going to use ocean view in all of my advertising. It's going to be a keyword search, and all of the photos that I do on Facebook and Instagram are going to have the ocean view photos. The other thing that
because people come for one thing, even though they're getting another, and ocean view is what they're drawn to. And even that they're buying in the preserve. There's a book on that, by the way. I forgot what it's called, but it's not in real estate, but it's about you attract clients this way, even though they end up buying this. Oh, and then by the way, they stay for a whole nother thing.
Exactly. Exactly. And so one of the things we also do, so we start, our season slows down Thanksgiving to after New Year's, and we spend that time planning for the following year. So we set all of our goals. How are we going to change? Because it's just slow enough for us to be like, okay, what worked, what didn't work? How are we spending our time? And when I was looking at that analysis, on our website, it had for sellers, like about us and the sellers page. And we don't spend any time on that page. We just mostly, for sellers, we do printed materials and we send mailers out everywhere. Well, now that I know that that's our number 13 page right below all of our ocean view listings, I'm like, okay, we need to dedicate a lot more time to making sure that there's information there that people want. And so kind of taking periodic, either weekly or monthly or even quarterly, looks at it and be like, well, what is the market telling me right now? And you don't have to have like full campaigns around it. You don't have to like completely re-engineer your process. But if you say like, oh, wow, like I'm seeing a lot of one particular region, I should send more mailers out that way, or do like a little campaign, an online campaign, or videotape you in that neighborhood talking about it and post that on social media. It doesn't have to be a really big, complicated effort, but just taking the time to listen to what the market is telling you.
Wow. That's great. It's like great advice that we agents, we love to tell our sellers that we could take that for ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. So
exactly.
I know we're running out of time. We've been going an hour. Do you have time to do our final 3 questions?
Yes.
Okay. So final 3, question number 1, what is the biggest, most powerful, you're a great person to ask this to, but the biggest, best, most powerful tool that you use in your business?
That's a really good question. And this is kind of an offside answer, but it's probably the best answer. Market knowledge. Like every time I step on a house, and my dad, when I first started, he would drive up and down every street, and I had to know the sales price of every single house on every single street from day one. And so when I am walking in, especially with the high end market, if you walk into someone who's looking at anything 10 million or above, they want to know every single sale ever around 10 million or north, and also who currently owns the house, who previously owned the house, and how did it compare. And we have sold many houses just standing there and knowing that information. And even if it is like $2 million or whatever your entry level is, you have to know that market knowledge instantly. And it takes time to do it, but it brings your business forward light years, because people trust you. That, like, I never go and show houses if I have not already driven to that house. So like, I'm going to go show 8 tomorrow. So tonight I'm going to go drive my path, because I have to know, 1, where I'm going. If you get lost on a showing process, like, you lose the client, right? You don't deserve it. But also, if I drive by and I see a for sale sign, I had better be ready for the list price of that. Why hasn't it sold? How does it compare to the one that I chose to go show them? So that kind of like on-hand market knowledge is critical.
Wow. I mean, that is the best, especially from someone who's so good at technology and analytics and, all of the things that we all wish we knew. It comes back down to market knowledge. Yeah. Next question. Is there a book of all books that has changed your life and or career? We just have to read.
I know. So I'm not a big, so I'll sort of answer your question and then give you good advice. I'm not a big like businessy book person, right? Someone's like, what's the best business? I'm not like a self-help person. I'm not into the business books. If I honestly need to like up my game competitively and try to like get more aggressive or study the market, this will sound weird, but I watch Animal Planet. Like, nothing is more cutthroat than nature. Like, you are just like, and you'll watch like the polar bears, like, oh, it's attacking a baby seal. And you're like, oh my God, that's so terrible. And then the baby seal gets away and you're like, thank God. But then the polar bear like goes and dies of starvation. Like, nature is so cutthroat. Like, you can learn from it, the defensive techniques, the like herd techniques, all of it. So from a business perspective, if I'm trying to like up my game, I watch Animal Planet. But from like a life-changing book, like emotionally, The Tao of Pooh and The Day of Piglet. Have you read those books?
No, I don't know. I've seen them, but I don't know if but I love like the whole Taoism and.
So that one, and it's like little
I love, like, that is the best. Like, it's like stoicism, like just take it, don't own it. We have a team member, Jack, and he's only 23. And I'm like, that guy's a gift. People don't attack him and go at him because he has the natural ability to let it bounce right back on you. Yeah. Nobody's going to go after him because they know their shit's going to come right back on him if they do. That's like Pooh Bear.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to
read the Tao of Pooh.
We got to get back to Animal Planet and then fast forward back to Dowel Jones. Animal Planet. What's your biggest takeaway from Animal Planet in business that you like took and you tangibly or can articulate to us that you took and moved forward in business? Was it just the reality of I got to like get this right and get my shit together, or is there something more?
That's a really good question. I think, part of it is understanding that everything is interconnected. And I think, you know, even within real estate, like how you approach yourself, how you present yourself. I try to be sensitive, like when I'm entering a room, and I like to hang back and watch how people are interacting, and that you can learn everything about how other people behave. And I think that kind of that's a skill that I have learned kind of from Animal Planet, but it's just watching and studying how people behave. It's interesting. And it's important for this job because there's a lot of psychology and group dynamics in this job that you have to quickly respond to.
If I watch Animal Planet and think about business, I think I'm going to have a panic attack.
Yeah. But it all comes
you don't want to be the polar bear or the baby seal. Like either way, it's not looking good. Like it could go bad.
But,
I love that though. Cause I'm all about now. My kids will ask me a question. I'm like comparing a tree to, I don't remember, to politics or whatever. And my daughter's like, Mom, what do trees and politics have to do with one another? I'm like, never mind.
You'll get to it eventually.
So Dow of Pooh, what's your biggest takeaway on that?
So there's a motto. The Dow of Pooh and Day of Piglet.
And the Day of
Piglet is the second book. So it's TAO of Pooh and TE of Piglet. So there's a motto that my family lives by, and it was originally rooted. It's in Taoism, and it was originally rooted in. We originally read it in the Tao of Pooh, but we call it like, how do you know, right? So have you seen the movie War Horse?
No, I don't think so. No,
Steven Spielberg. It's really good. It's actually that same. It's like the parable of the farmer, and basically the parable goes, you know, the farmer and his son. They have a small plot of land. They're growing their farm. And then one day the horse kicks the boy and he breaks his leg. And the neighbor's like, oh my God, what are you going to do? Like, this is, you know, your son, he's the only one that could take care of the farm and you're too old. This is terrible news. And the farmer goes, well, how do you know that it's terrible news? He goes, well, my son just broke his leg. He's like, well, how do you know that's a bad news? And the guy's like, okay, whatever. Right. So the neighbor's like, and then a little bit later, the World War I breaks out. And so now his son has the broken leg and can't go to battle, and the neighbor's son now can. And so then the neighbor's like, you're so lucky that your son has a broken leg. And the guy goes, well, how do you know that that's, and so it keeps, and so there's something to, how do you know that it's bad that this deal blew up? How do you know that it's good that this, and being able to just kind of roll with it without like your life grinding to a halt because you think something is good or bad.
God, that is like the best ever.
Right?
How do you know? And who are you to know? Like, by the way, we don't always have to be right because we're usually not.
Yeah.
How do you know?
How do you know?
I love
and
that.
So that's like a family parable that we've always lived by.
I am reeling that one in to my family.
Yeah.
How do you know?
Yeah.
That is so good.
It makes a lot of hard things easier to deal with.
Yeah.
And once you get good at using it, then
and even with our clients, because they're so looking for certainty and we want to give it to them. But at the end of the day, it's something we can't give as much as we tend to want to try. But when you just take into the, how do you know? And there are some not so bad things about that uncertainty.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Last thing. If there's one thing that we're going to remember, because we're just going to forget everything else, which we are not, what would that one thing be that we need to remember, or you would hope we would remember?
I'm also not going to answer this. I'm going to
give you some other advice. I always tell everybody on the show, I'm like, look, if you don't like the question, just make up the answer you want to give me. Like, Jessica, you get it. You're like, here's the answer I want to give you.
This is advice my brother gave me that changed my life. And it's kind of similar to the, how do you know, but to survive and excel at this business, he says you need a quarterback memory. And basically what that means is the second the play, you just hike, do what you can. And if it falls or fails, you have to completely clear that from your mind and go right back to the starting line. And because if you let any kind of failure like drag you around, it'll take you under. This business will take you under and you won't know what to do. But like and we'll go through like terrible experiences, you know, where you're just like, I don't know if I can help this person anymore. The second that it's done, you have to let it go. And so so one of us will have a tough day and we'll just say quarterback memory. Like you let it go and move on because you cannot get it back.
God, that is the best advice in everything.
Right? Yeah.
Just quarterback memory. I'm like, let it go, Elsa, let it go.
Exactly. Exactly.
Close out with Elsa song, except it's copywritten. But anyway.
It feels good though. When you really start putting that in practice, it feels really good.
Yeah.
It's the only way to survive.
How do you know? And quarterback memory.
Yeah.
Awesome. Jessica, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jere. This was really fun.
Yeah, it was. And good to see you one-on-one.
I know.